came across this recipe for curried veggies, and after a few tweaks of my own, I perfected the recipe, and it is a regular staple in our household. I love this recipe because it is both vegan and gluten-free. I am neither of those things, but if you know somebody who is either of those things, it's a great dish to cook for anybody. So I hope you'll give it a try. So I'm starting with dried chickpeas. They taste so much better than canned. And I buy these in bulk at Winco. It's a great place to buy bulk things for cheap. And I'm just measuring about a cup total. That's a half cup right there, but I'm going to do about a cup of chickpeas in this bowl. And then I'm just going to cover them in water and soak them overnight before cooking them. Okay, pause. I unfortunately did not get footage of me actually cooking the chickpeas, so I will briefly go over how you cook chickpeas. You could of course use canned chickpeas, but dried chickpeas are cheaper and they taste better. I just don't like that weird like canned food taste that's in canned food. So I buy canned food as infrequently as possible. I just don't really like the taste. Anyway, to cook the chickpeas, after you soak the chickpeas, you simply stick them in a pot with water. I like to do, like let's say there's this much chickpeas in your pot, I put like this much water, water so that there's this much above your chickpeas. And you bring them to a boil and then you lower it to a simmer and cook it for about 1.5 hours. That's how long it takes to cook the chickpeas. If you are vegan or if you like baking with egg whites a lot, save that cooking liquid from the chickpeas. It's called aquafaba and you can use it you can whip it up just like egg whites. It's like vegan egg whites. It's magical. Back to the video. And now the next day I am preparing the vegetables for this. I'm using an onion. A red onion would be better than a yellow onion, which is what this is. And I take these end pieces of the onion and other little skin parts of the onion that have flavor, and I save them with other vegetable trimmings and I freeze them, and I use that to make broth later. Basically broth for free. This is a really good tip if you want to save money. Anyway, the rest of the onion I am taking off the outer layer of that peeling, but as you can see there's a thinner layer of peeling right there that's really fibrous and thick. You can technically eat it and it tastes like onion, but it's not the best because it's very fibrous, so I save that and I freeze that for stock as well. The rest of this onion I'm just doing a rough dice. It doesn't have to be perfect, we're going to be roasting this for a long time. And now carrots. I peel my carrots first because the peels are bitter. And I removed the ends as well. And guess where those end pieces and those peelings are going to go? The frozen vegetable trimmings for broth. So these are parts that I would have thrown away or composted anyway, but I'm going to turn them into broth for free. Anyway, the rest of the carrot I am just doing a dice. They're not going to shrink as much in the oven as the onions, so I want that to be small. And now cauliflower. This has been a king of a lot of healthy recipes in the last few years. It works for paleo, keto people, it works for vegans. It's a pretty good versatile vegetable on its own. It really doesn't have that much flavor. But like tofu and other things like that don't have very much flavor, it's really good at like picking up the flavors of other things, and just if you cook it with something else that's flavorful, the cauliflower will taste like that flavorful thing. And cauliflower is a nice, nutritious, cruciferous vegetable, so it's a great addition to your diet, and it's also relatively inexpensive, especially during the colder months of the year when it's in season. So I'm just chopping the cauliflower into rough bite-sized pieces, remembering that they will shrink significantly. Now a sweet potato. Ideally this would be a Korean or Japanese sweet potato. They have white to very pale yellow flesh. But most people can't find those at the store, and I can't find it at a regular store either. I have to go to an Asian market. So I'm just using this regular sweet potato with the orange flesh. I'd rather use the Asian sweet potato because it has a milder flavor. This sweet potato, while delicious, it kind of just tastes like carrot. But anyway, it's good. It's very nutritious and very economical, especially this time of the year when sweet potatoes are in season. And I'm just doing a dice on that as well for bite-sized pieces. It's not really going to shrink that much when you cook it, so what you see is what you get. And then I put them all in a giant casserole dish. You don't want it to be too deep because then it will take a lot longer to cook. So try to keep it as shallow as you can, and use this yogurt. Nope, that comes later. This is leftover oil from deep frying. Instead of throwing that out, I save it and I reuse it for recipes like this. Olive oil would actually be better, but I have all this leftover deep fried oil, as you can see. So I'm just dousing it, covering it with the oil. I don't measure it. And then the chickpeas that I cooked yesterday, I am adding those to the casserole. And chickpeas are a great addition to this. They get crispy in the oven and they add protein, because when you serve this later with the rice, the chickpeas and the rice come together to make a protein. That's aquafaba. Don't throw it out. Use it as an egg white substitute later. Now I'm seasoning it with just salt and pepper. And you can stop there if you want, if you don't like curry powder. But to me, what really makes this dish delicious across the board is curry powder. I happened to get that bottle with a $2 off coupon, but bulk curry powder is better, especially if you're going to be cooking with curry powder a lot. Get it in bulk. I also added a dash of cayenne pepper because I like my food a little extra spicy. I'm just kind of loosely stirring it to incorporate it a little bit, just so the curry powder won't burn like on the very tops of the vegetables, but you're going to stir it while you're cooking it. So I pop it into the 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes or so, and then at that point I check it and the steam fogs up your glasses or your camera and just give it a nice stir. You'll see here how much liquid has been released already from the vegetables, so you want to stir it around and give the vegetables a chance to brown evenly and a chance for some of that moisture to evaporate off in the oven. This is a pretty thick layering of vegetables that I'm doing, so the whole process is going to take about an hour. I pop it back in, come back in another 20 minutes, and give it another old stir. And as you can see, it's really starting to shrink more now. It's starting to brown up a bit more, but there's still plenty of liquid collecting at the bottom of the casserole dish. Just keep stirring, keep reincorporating all the oil and all the spices, and get different parts of those veggies browned. Pop it back in the oven. And once it gets down to this stage where it's a little more reduced, I like to check on it every 15 minutes or so. And look how nice and brown bits of those cauliflower are and how shrunken the vegetables are. The onions should be mostly dissolved. That's kind of how you know when it's done. Now, it's technically done now. It was technically done 20 minutes ago. You could have eaten it. The vegetables were cooked. But we really want to condense these vegetables and get a lot of their water out, because that's what's going to give them a nice concentrated flavor. All that steam coming out is water coming out of the vegetables. This is after another 10 to 15 minutes in the oven, and as you can see, it's even more brown, even more condensed. There's no water pooling at the bottom of the casserole dish. That's how I know that it's pretty much done to my liking, is when it's very dry at the bottom of the casserole dish, and the oil has really married with those onions, and the potato is really tender. That's when you know it's done. And I'm just chopping some fresh parsley. I prefer cilantro, but I didn't have any. And if you're one of those people who can't eat cilantro anyway because it tastes like soap, parsley is an okay substitute. It's not really necessary, but I like having that bright green herb in there to counter with that roasted veg. And I serve it with some brown rice. And I also really like it with a dollop of yogurt on the side. I think it really just rounds out all the flavors nicely to have that nice tangy creamy yogurt. But yeah. This is a delicious winter staple, and it's extremely healthy. So there you have it! Roasted curried cauliflower and veggies with chickpeas. This dish really is wonderful because it ticks so many of the boxes. It's vegan, it's gluten-free, it's high in fiber, it's economical, it tastes good left over. The chickpeas and the rice come together to form a complete protein, and it's just intensely flavorful above all else. Recipe amounts and places where you can buy the ingredients are listed in the video description below. Bye!